A judge has officially ruled that the prosecution will be able to seek the death penalty as a punishment for Bryan Kohberger if he is found guilty. This comes after Bryan Kohberger's attorneys have filed multiple motions trying to get death penalty off the table as a punishment. His attorneys tried to argue that Bryan Kohberger has autism. They tried arguing that executing someone with autism would constitute cruel and unusual punishment under the 8th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. But prosecutors argued that under the U.S. Supreme Court, the only mental disability that precludes imposition of the death penalty is an intellectual disability, and Kohberger's diagnosis was of mild autism without accompanying intellectual impairment. Kohberger's trial is set to begin in August, and honestly, if he's found guilty, I think the death penalty is more than reasonable. Because at the end of the day, these 4 lost their lives and they deserve to have justice.
One of Jeffrey Epstein's victims was just found dead, and she allegedly took her own life. This was Virginia Giuffre, and she played an instrumental part in helping bring Epstein's crimes to light. And just today, she was found dead only weeks after being hit by a vehicle and claiming she had only a few days left to live. This was the photo that she shared on her social media after her accident, and her cryptic post alarmed people. So Virginia is deeply tied into the entire Epstein story. She was a victim of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's early on, and she was actually recruited into their sex trafficking ring at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. She was approached while she was working there by Ghislaine Maxwell, and eventually found herself being trafficked by her and Epstein. Now, Virginia's most infamous accusations were leveled against Prince Andrew from England, and she claimed that she was forced to do things with him when she was just 17. She also made a lot of different allegations about a lot of different powerful men, but we'll save those for another time. Virginia dedicated her life after coming out with all of this information to fighting and advocating for victims of child sexual abuse and sex trafficking. And back in 2019, just one day after court documents were unsealed involving Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Giuffre, that was the day when Epstein was found dead in his prison cell. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. Obviously, my thoughts and prayers are with Virginia's family, but this is just absolutely horrific and shocking news.
I cut my hair the other day. I didn't think 3 inches was gonna be that crazy. 3 inches is long. Yeah. Anyway, I read this story in the comments section and I was like, oh, I have to share this with everyone. I feel like I say this all the time, but mirror stories scare me so much. And thank you, Robert Gonzalez, for letting me share this story with everyone. And apologies for that intro. More than 40 years ago, my first wife used to love mirrors in every room of the house. If I'm not mistaken, I believe we had 50 mirrors, or rather, she paid for 50 mirrors total throughout the house. When we had some friends over to renovate, paint the walls, replace the carpeting, they mentioned the mirrors and said, you guys must be kinky to have all those mirrors, and my wife basically stated, no, I just like to see the TV reflected in all of the mirrors whenever I turn to my side to go to sleep. I fall asleep watching or listening to the TV. I was always afraid that she would get struck by lightning when we had bad thunderstorms in West Texas out in the country. Unfortunately, for some strange reason, I always seemed to attract lightning when I was out working on the farm on the tractor. Lightning strikes would follow me in whatever direction I was driving the tractor. I was very cautious when entering the house and would rush into the house and immediately close the door behind me for fear of a lightning strike into the house and reflecting off all the mirrors that were hung up throughout the household. When we eventually moved from the property due to foreclosure, we moved into another home which is approximately half the size, so we only hung up about a dozen mirrors in this household. The others were left in storage. I distinctly remember one afternoon when I came home from work, I walked into the house and saw my wife sitting down on the recliner next to the door in the living room, and she asked me how my day was so far. I responded that it was a good day, not too busy on the farm. I took my hat off and walked into the kitchen, and to my surprise, my wife was at the stove cooking me lunch. I had to do a double take and look back into the living room. There was no one sitting there, but when I looked in the mirror, I could see my wife clearly sitting on the chair. That was another oddity that happened throughout our lives when we were married. Eventually, we moved to South Texas, then 4 years later, my wife passed away. I'm so sorry for your loss. South Texas? Because I'm from South Texas. You didn't bring the mirrors down here, did you? Say no right now. I cannot even imagine being in that situation where it's like you're seeing it through the mirror. She's sitting on the couch, but she's actually in the kitchen. Yeah, no way. Oh, I got goosebumps. I can't. But what do you guys think?
This Republican was just arrested for distributing child pornography. Meet Representative R.J. May from Lexington County, South Carolina. So in April of 2024, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received a cyber tip. Apparently, somebody using the username Joe Biden 69 was sending explicit photographs of children and sharing those images on a messaging app. According to court filings, the photographs and materials that were shared were extremely graphic and disturbing, and showed graphic depictions of children being abused. Eventually, though, after doing some digging, authorities were able to connect that account, Joe Biden 69, to an IP address that matched the home and mobile device of a state representative. Yes, this Republican lawmaker was getting in front of cameras telling you how to live your life and trying to legislate how we as Americans live, while at the same time masquerading as Joe Biden 69 and sharing dozens, if not hundreds, of child pornography images. Now, there are still some things that are unclear. Where did this guy get these images from? Who exactly was he sending these images to? But it's safe to say that every time a pedophile legislator is caught and exposed, I sleep a little bit better that night. I'll continue to keep you guys updated about this story, but if you want to hear me rant about topics like this and join me on my journey to expose pedophiles that work in the American government, please consider listening to my podcast, The Conspiracy Files, or checking the show out on YouTube. And like I said, follow me for more updates in this case if they come around.
I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. Using crystals is demonic. God created crystals and he said that they are good. The problem is when we start to use crystals to manifest, to control things, to manipulate, to bring about our desired outcome, or we turn to crystals for healing instead of turning to God, instead of praying to God, right? So instead of praying to God and asking him for his will to be done, for blessings and having a relationship with him, you turn to the crystals and you have a relationship to the crystals. You turn to yourself. You're setting the intentions. You're manifesting your desires. It's all about you. It's all about the crystals and the kind of power that you can have and heal on your own. It's not about God anymore. It's not about prayer anymore. It's not about cultivating a relationship with the Lord anymore. I used to own crystals. I used to use crystals. They ruined my life. They opened the door to demons in my life because they're witchcraft. Crystals don't absorb it and they don't take it away and they're not magical. Okay, there's demons attached to your witchcraft crystals. When you are depressed and you're anxious or you're fearful and you turn to God and you cry out for the Holy Spirit comes and he takes our burdens, he takes our pain, he brings his healing and he brings his presence and he brings his peace. So if you turn to a crystal to absorb and take away and do all this negative stuff, it's never going to work. And if you feel a temporary release, it's because the enemy, the devil, is letting up. Those demons are letting off of you for a moment. So you feel like, oh, I had a breakthrough, I feel better. And then he comes back. It's a rock. You're not going to find freedom, peace, salvation in a rock. I'm sorry. You're not. A rock isn't going to heal you. I tried. You're talking to the girl who tried to heal from a trauma bond and a horrible relationship with a pink rock. Like that was going to solve my problems. Guess what? It made everything worse. It destroyed my relationships. It destroyed my heart. If you want to hear more of my story and you want to learn more about crystals, astrology, yoga, why these things are wrong, like actually get the breakdown, because I left witchcraft. I left the occult. I spill all the secrets. This is my new book. It's called Breaking Demonic Chains. You can order it anywhere where books are. Every chapter is a different popular practice manifesting. We go there. I promise you, if you've opened those doors and you go through this book, you are going to get a new level of clarity, freedom, and breakthrough, because I used to be depressed, anxious. I was so bound by all the witchcraft that I let in. God led me out, delivered me, healed me, and I share exactly how I got free and how you can break free in this book. If you found this video helpful, please send this to somebody who uses crystals, who's into astrology, who practices yoga, who's messing with witchcraft, because they need to know the truth that Jesus loves them and can set them free. And all of these other practices are the counterfeit to the real thing, which is life in Christ with Jesus.
Who's ready for another scary doll story to just traumatize me even more? So this girl says that when she was young, she was gifted a baby doll. She explains that the baby doll was programmed to, like, if you were to put a battery in it, anytime you would go near it or pick her up, she would say mama or papa or milk. If nobody was around the doll or if nobody would talk to it, it would essentially fall asleep. She would always leave this baby doll on the couch in the living room, and the creepy thing started when this doll would all of a sudden wake up around 2 in the morning morning every night. And because the walls in that house were so thin, every time at 2 in the morning, it would wake up her dad. The thing was that anytime the doll was left on its own, it would fall asleep and it would only wake up if anybody was around it. And around 2 in the morning, nobody was around this doll. So eventually the dad would get really frustrated because this doll would wake him up every night at 2 a.m. So it got to the point where he would just grab the doll, turn it around, and do the off switch from the back. The thing was that they didn't think it was like anything paranormal or anything strange because she says that she was a sleep talker. So her dad's theory was that she would sleep talk and the doll would hear her and wake up. Which honestly sounds like a good theory. Like, I'm glad the investigator came up with a realistic explanation and, you know, they went about their way. Not everything is paranormal. However, the following night, even though he had turned that switch off, he woke up to the sound of the doll saying, "Mama, Mama." Obviously the dad mad as hell because he got woken up again, goes to the doll, turns it around, and it's still switched off. Dad was still trying to find a logical explanation and he decides that maybe the wires were like put in wrong and it was just a glitch. So of course he decided the next thing to do was to take the batteries out of that doll. And of course again the following night at 2 in the morning the doll was going, "Mama, Mama." And at this point the dad, he wasn't even scared. He was just so frustrated that this doll was not letting him sleep. So there was one night where her parents had a party and invited their coworkers and their friends over. So she says that she was there at the party, but she was in the living room playing with the doll, and eventually she got sleepy, so she left the doll on the couch and went up to her room to go to sleep. And I guess this was told to her by her parents, but after she went to bed, they all started to get into a conversation about paranormal things. They all started sharing stories and things that have happened to them. So that's when the dad decided to share about the doll, and he was like, "You guys see that doll right there in the couch? It wakes up every day at 2 in the morning, even though I took the batteries out, even though I turned it off." And of course his friends were like, "There's no way that doll wakes up." Like, they just thought he was trying to scare them. At this point it is 3 in the morning and one of the guys was like, "Hey, it's really late, I have to go home." So he starts walking out the front door. As he gets to the door to open it and walk out, this doll opens her eyes and starts saying, "Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye," over and over again. That guy never came back. The guy got really scared, went to his car, and never visited their house again. Now, the issue was that this doll was programmed with certain sayings. Bye-bye was not one of them. That her parents indeed got rid of that little baby doll that night, and she never saw it again ever since.
In 1979, a teenage girl accepts a babysitting job at an isolated home in the Minnesota woods. After putting the children to bed, she settles on the couch to watch TV, only to be startled by a phone call. She picks it up and hears heavy breathing, when suddenly a man's unsettling voice asks, "Have you checked on the children?" Nervous, she dismisses it as a prank and hangs up. 15 minutes later, the phone rings again. This time the voice asks, "Why haven't you checked on the children?" Panic sets in and she calls 911. The operator advises her to keep the caller on the line if they call back, allowing the call to be traced. Moments later, the phone rings again, and the voice snarls, "Check on the children now." Trembling, she keeps the call connected as instructed. Once more the phone rings. The operator's voice crackles through, urgent and frantic. "Get out of the house. The calls are coming from upstairs." Terrified but worried about the children, she hesitates before fleeing outside. She bolted out of the house, her heart pounding in her chest. There, a tall man stepped out of the shadows, his presence looming as he stared her down with a chilling intensity, and he asked in a cold, menacing voice, "Why didn't you check on the children?"
If you've seen me before, you probably know about the rules that have been passed down through generations and generations over hundreds of years on how to stay safe while living or being or traveling or whatever in the Appalachian Mountains. Like, don't whistle, don't go out in the woods alone after dark. If you saw something weird, no you didn't. If you hear something weird, no you didn't. If you hear somebody calling your name out in the woods, even if the voice sounds familiar, you heard nothing. Not everybody that comes here or moves here knows the rules. This is a story that was sent to me by a follower named Sarah, whose husband moved here with her. He had no idea about the rules, so here's what happened. Sarah actually grew up in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. Her husband grew up in the city in Missouri. For a short period of time, Sarah actually lived in Virginia, and she used to hike in the Appalachian Mountains in regions like Tennessee, North Carolina, obviously Virginia, and West Virginia. She knew a lot of stories about the creepy crawlies that live in the woods and the rules about, you know, if you heard something, no you didn't. Don't run run, don't whistle, don't sing in the dark, you know, that whole sort of thing. So like I said earlier, Sarah's husband had no idea about these rules. Now they live in the middle of nowhere. So one night Sarah and her husband go out to feed the horses. As they're walking down towards the barn, her husband starts whistling this little tune, and jokingly Sarah cuts him off and she's like, hey, haha, you know, you're not supposed to whistle, especially after dark, right? He had no idea what she was talking about. So she was like, you know, let me fill you in on some cliff notes of the stories that I've heard over the years and a basic list of the rules. So about 6 months later, Sarah's working nights at the hospital and her husband's at home by himself. He goes out to feed the horses around 11 o'clock at night. As he's walking down there, he hears a strange whistle coming from up in one of the trees. He said it didn't sound like a bird or an animal, but more like a human trying to imitate a bird. He thought it was strange, but he didn't really think more about it, and he just kept walking on down towards the barn. The closer he got to the barn, though, the floodlights on the side of the barn start to flicker, and they eventually went out. He turns around to go back to the house to get a flashlight, and as he takes about 4 steps towards the house, the lights come back on. So he turns back around and he starts walking back towards the barn again. Then the same thing happened. The lights flickered and they went back out. So he went back inside, he got himself a flashlight, and by the time he got back outside, the lights were still on. So he just walked on down towards the barn. Thought it was just like a faulty bulb or something, you know? So as he gets closer to the barn, the lights go out again and he turns on his flashlight, but then his flashlight starts to flicker too. Then his flashlight goes out. So he starts hitting it, trying to get it to come back on, and it's not coming back on. So he turns around and he starts going back to the house when suddenly all the lights come back on. His flashlight and the floodlights. So he turns around again to go back to the barn, and then all the lights go out again, including his flashlight, and he hears that strange whistle that he heard before again. That's when he had that oh hell no moment, and he ran back to the house, even though you're not supposed to run. That's one of the rules. Guess he did not get the memo there, or he just forgot. I don't know. When Sarah got home from work that night, she went out to the barn with him to feed the horses. There was no problem, you know, there was no whistles, no flickering lights. The hair on the back of his neck stood up as they passed by that tree where he had heard the whistle the first time. Both of the horses were on high alert when they did get there. Sarah said she never had the heart to tell him, but she could feel something staring at them the entire time they were out there. Some things are just better kept to yourself. Let me know in the comments what you think about this story, or if you've ever experienced anything similar. If you've ever had anything scary happen to you, I want to hear it. I don't care if it's about ghosts, cryptids, stalkers, real life situations. I want to hear it all. You can send those stories to me here, or you can find my email address linked in my bio. Still can't believe I'm almost at 500,000 followers. I'll be posting a lot more scary stories in the future, so if you like this kind of thing, give me a follow. As always, I look forward to seeing y'all in another video.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so I'm not a storyteller, so forgive me, but this happened when I was probably 18, 19. I was still living at home with my dad, and I was dating an ex-boyfriend of mine, and my dad was still pretty stern with me. He's Hispanic, so even though I was of age, I couldn't really do much, or I could, but he wanted me home at a certain time. And this night I had fallen asleep and I woke up at my boyfriend's house and I was like, oh shit, we gotta go. Like, I gotta go. So he drops me off at home. It's late. It's probably like 11 p.m. And I go to the front door and I go to open it and it's locked. And my dad never locks or locked the door. So I look to my ex-boyfriend or my boyfriend. I look to him and I say, you know, I put up my finger like, give me a minute. And he goes like, puts his hand up like, oh, okay. And he's always waited for me to get inside. He never drove off or anything like that. So I go to the back and I see him through the back door, through the window to the front. I see him there, his car's still there. So I'm like, okay, cool. I try the back door, didn't work. And he's still sitting there. And so I go around to my dad's window and I look inside and I call in and I see that he's not there. My dad's gone. So I'm like, what the fuck? What happened? Like, where is he? So I go walk up front back to the front door. My boyfriend's gone. And my phone is on like 2%. It's about to die. And I'm like, okay, well now I'm here by myself. What just happened? Like, he always waits for me to go inside. So I go, and with a little bit of battery I had left, I go and I call him and I'm like, what happened? Like, why'd you leave? What's going on? He said, you got inside. And I said, no, I didn't get inside at all. What are you talking about? And he said, no, you went inside. We had a nightlight, a Dodger blue light my dad had in the living room. It was just me and my dad, okay? He's a boy. So that was up in the living room. And he said that I went in, I unplugged it, and he couldn't see, but he saw an outline, and I waved. I waved to him. And I told him, I was like, let's call him Jerry. I was like, Jerry, I didn't get inside. I was never inside. No, like, nobody's here. And he was like, what? Okay, like, so he whips around and comes and picks me up. Anyways, find out my dad's at the bar down the street, just hanging out, having a good time. And I was like, why'd you lock the door? Like, what happened? And he was like, oh, whatever his story was. And go inside, no one's there. The light, the blue light that my ex was talking about, was on when I passed the door to go to my dad's room. And when I walked back to the front, that light never was off. So somebody wanted me home that night, and somebody wanted me there alone.
We are the most dangerous thing in Massachusetts. Hello, I am a Pukwudgie. We are spirits of the forest. We live in the forests of Massachusetts and have been here as long as the Wampanoag people. Although we are irritating to humans, we used to get along. But one day they had enough and started slaughtering us. Ever since, we mercilessly unalive humans any chance we get. We like to play with our prey, and what we will do to you depends on who you are. If you are a lost hiker, we will guide you to your way out, but not out of the forest, out of this life. If you are hunting, we will fire poison arrows at you. And if you are a younger woman, we need you to reproduce. We will kidnap you and keep you in our camps. But let's not go into detail. So if you are in Massachusetts, make sure you know where you are. And if you have an encounter with us, get away as soon as possible because...
Hey bestie, you know what time it is. Go get your snack. I don't know if y'all could tell, but we're feeling a little VIP because we're in Houston, yeah? So go get your snack because it's story time. And if you live in Houston, come show some love. Follow me on Instagram. I'll be posting everything I'm doing on there. I would love to meet some of y'all. Anyways, for the sake of the story, let's call this man Chris. So one day, Chris goes to a bar to watch the game. As he's watching the game, in walks this baddie. And I mean, she's bad. Like the type you don't even, you scared to look too long. So boom, she walks in and he's like, damn, I want to talk to her, but she looked like she out of my league. So I'm just mind my business. But I guess the baddie noticed that. So she chooses to sit right next to him. Not long enough after, they start to have a conversation. They actually end up having a really good time. And when it was time for Chris to go, Chris is like, hey, like, can I get your number? I really clicked with you. And she's like, oh, no, like, I don't really give out my number. Chris is like, I understand, like, do you have social media? I have that. And she's like, no, I'm not on social media either. I'm more of a real life person. Chris is a little confused, but he's like, all right, sure, whatever. So he tells her, okay, yeah, I respect that. And she replies to him and says, by real life, I mean real life. Why do you want my number when you can take me home? Oh. Chris is like, you want me to take you home? She replies to him and says, let's not fool ourselves. Don't act like you don't want me right now. Chris grabbed her hand and said, anyways, they go to his house and they do the deal. Something Chris don't even know he about to regret. Because as soon as the next day, he woke up feeling off. Like his body felt heavy, his head was pounding, and he just couldn't shake this weird feeling of something watching him. But he just brushed it off like, I was drinking last night and we had such a good time last night, so that's probably why. I'm probably just tired. So boom, they go their separate ways. He never ended up getting her number or social media or nothing. So he basically had a one-night stand. A week later, he starts getting sick out of nowhere. He's weak and he starts to lose weight fast too. And because he was so sick, his business deals fell through. His car ended up getting repoed, and for some reason, he just keeps having nightmares. He tried doctors, therapy, everything. Nobody can find anything wrong with him. Nobody can help him. And he had a Haitian homie, and at the time, his homie is watching everything happen. And so his homie says something to him, and his homie is like, yo, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think this is something spiritual. Doctors can't find anything wrong with you. You need to go to a different kind of doctor. And I know one. I can help you. Chris is desperate, so he don't care. He going. Anyway, they take him, and the other type of doctor does a little cleansing for him and everything like that, and end up telling him that that lady from that night is somebody that goes around specifically targeting men. They look the part, they smell the part, they talk the part, so you can fall for them, and so they can have sex with you. And by having sex with you, they just took your soul, kind of. There are literally cults of women that do this. I don't know if y'all didn't know, but in case y'all didn't know, I'm telling y'all now. So that's what ended up happening to Chris. The Haitian witch doctor ended up really helping him, like taking it all off of him, but they also told him that if he didn't come here, like he probably had about a year left until he either went crazy or completely just... That's what they do. They go around and they take your soul slowly and you just suffer slowly. All because you wanted to hit that. Chris is okay now. Like I said, he got the help that he needed, but he just wanted to share his story with y'all. So the men that let their lives get driven by lust, learn. If that does happen to you and you do need help, go get my ebook. The link is in my bio. It's called Cleansed and Covered, and it helps with spiritual cleansing, basically. Okay, I love you guys. Bye. I told y'all I was going to do the story.
So the FBI and Department of Justice today said that Epstein had no client list. They also said that they're done releasing information about Jeffrey Epstein. This is 100% real. This news is just breaking right now. And oh yeah, they're claiming once again they know for 100% fact that he killed himself. So let's go through parts of this release right now, because there's a lot here that doesn't necessarily make sense. Basically, the DOJ and FBI are saying they searched through everything they could find relating to Epstein, and they basically say that yes, Epstein was recording his victims, taking photos and videos, and they claim that he had over 10,000 downloaded child porn videos. But of course, they're not going to release any of those, and that of course makes sense. But down here they say this review confirmed that Epstein harmed over 1,000 victims. I mean, we knew the number was high, but I've never really heard the number 1,000 before. That's a lot of victims, being trafficked to a lot of people. Keep in mind that Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's partner, is currently in prison for sex trafficking, and not sex trafficking to Jeffrey Epstein. So they also refer back to an autopsy report, which has been refuted by people who actually got a chance to look at Epstein's body outside of the government, namely Dr. Michael Baden. And they also say that they have footage now, which they released and I looked at, that shows that Epstein clearly killed himself. I'm going to talk about this footage in another video. But essentially they say no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. So that's it, folks. They're not releasing any more info. I cannot believe that there were actually people out there who thought that this administration would come in and be truthful about this shit. I've been saying since before the election, nobody's going to release these files, but there were still people out there who were saying, oh yeah, he's going to come in and it's all going to be out in the open. But people fail to realize that all of these individuals were in on this. Not everybody from every party, but there were a lot of bad apples on both sides of the political aisle. So this is not a one party is evil thing. This is, we the people are being ruled by corrupt, sometimes pedophiles. And this is real. Interestingly enough, when I tried to go back to find that document again on the original page on Axios where it was released, I'm already getting some sort of an error. I don't know if it's been taken down from their website or what, but yeah, they essentially say that they know that Epstein killed himself, he wasn't trafficking to any notable persons, and of course, there's no evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. Guys, I've been saying this for years on these platforms. If there ever was any paper evidence relating to this blackmail scheme, it was destroyed long ago, probably before Epstein was taken out, probably before he was even arrested. Go read the 2-part book, One Nation Under Blackmail by Whitney Webb. It thoroughly exposes how Epstein was connected to multiple governments. Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of one of the world's most infamous spies. And yeah, right now we're seeing an actual government cover-up playing out in real time. I find it very interesting that every time they seem to release information about Epstein, there's something else happening in the world. Even when Elon Musk was tweeting about Trump having ties to Epstein, all of a sudden, and I don't want to sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist, but all of a sudden tensions flare in LA and Trump's out there sending troops and there's all these newspaper reports and headlines about these riots that are starting. And then the Epstein story, which kind of grew for a moment, fades away into obscurity. I mean, just look back historically, a number of these Epstein disclosures have been, partnered alongside other big news stories. which in my opinion means that they're hoping that they won't report on this as much as they'll report on something else. As someone who lives in Texas, I am absolutely heartbroken by what's been happening here, but the timing is just, it's peculiar to say the least.
Hey bestie, you want to get your snack? Now at this point, I'm really starting to think that maybe I'm shadow banned, because I know I haven't been posting stories, but I have been posting a little bit, and I feel like y'all don't see it. And the ones that do see it, y'all comment and say, I think you're shadow banned, so I think I might be shadow banned. So please be sure to like put your notifications on or something, I don't know. But I'm about to put out a lot of content, so if y'all see it, can y'all interact with it so I can like get unshadow banned? Anyways, as y'all know, I am leaving Houston. I was in Houston for the weekend. It was a great time. Just look at my page. I got more content to post too. So be sure to look out for that. Anyways, on to the story. I'm sorry if the background is a little loud. Now this story is quite interesting because it's something that you would never think could happen, but it can. So the submitter of the story said that he has been addicted to porn videos since he was like 7 years old. Nobody knew about it because it started off with y'all remember like the TV, they used to have those channels that used to just have porn. So it started out from there, and then he found out that he can watch that for free online, and after that it was just like over. Anyways, at a couple points of his life, he wanted to like quit, you know? And he tried, but he just couldn't. Like he just kept getting drawn back to it. It wasn't until he met this girl. They had started dating for a little bit, and he felt comfortable enough to tell him, I don't know why I said him, her, about the porn addiction. So he was a little afraid because, like, you know, some people don't really take that well. Like, they judge you, but she didn't judge him. She said to him was, oh, so you have a demon. He was like, girl, what are you talking about? It's a little porn. That ain't no demon. And she was like, oh, but it is. This story is kind of similar to the other one that I told. But she basically tells him, like, let me guess, your love life is trash. And he's like, yeah, you got a point. And then she says, and let me guess, in your intimate times with other people, you never really enjoy yourself for real. And sometimes they might not enjoy themselves either. He had to think about that. He's like, another point made. So she broke it down to him what a spiritual spouse is. Everything she was saying was lining up with his life. He's like, oh shit, do I have a spiritual spouse? So she tells him, like, if you want to get rid of that spiritual spouse, it's going to take a lot, and it's going to be very hard because that thing claimed you since you were 7 years old. That thing has been with you since you were 7 years old. That thing probably even married you. I've spoke about this before. That's why you're never supposed to let nobody put a ring on your finger in your dream, because baby, you get married to something you don't even want to get married to. And a lot of the times people don't know getting a spiritual spouse can start that young. It can even start as you being a baby. And so she kind of like guided him and told him how to not get rid of it, because he couldn't get rid of it on his own. He needed help. He said it took him about 3 years to get rid of that spiritual spouse. And before he even had that talk with the girl, he didn't even know what a spiritual spouse was, let alone having one. And at some point, that spiritual spouse started showing up in his dream, cussing him out. That's how bad it was. Like, he would literally be fighting it in his dream and wake up with bruises. That's how bad it was. He said he had to do a lot of things that he doesn't want to disclose, a lot of things that he's not proud of, to help get rid of that spiritual spouse. It was hard, draining, depressing. He even almost like, that's how bad. But he kept fighting, and now he's free. And he's married to that lady that helped him get rid of that spiritual spouse. And now he's super hyper aware when it comes to like spiritual things. And so that's why he wanted to share his story to me, because he ended up finding me on TikTok and So make sure y'all beware, because y'all think it's something simple when it's really not in the spiritual world. And I continuously tell you guys that. Now, I don't want to say if you think you have a spiritual spouse and you want to get rid of it, go to my ebook, because I haven't seen anybody as far as like that got help from my ebook with spiritual spouse, but you never know. Everybody else is getting like help with everything else. They're breaking curses, they're getting their dream jobs, and honestly, like, I didn't even mean for that to happen, but I'm happy it's happening. So if you feel like you're dealing with something like that, maybe go grab my ebook. The link is in my bio. It teaches you how to cleanse yourself from like bad stuff like that, basically. Anyways, y'all, if y'all see my content and it's not story related, can y'all like interact with it, please? So I'm like not shadow banned anymore. Anyways, keep on the lookout for Houston content. Okay, bye.
Hammer coined the phrase, "You can't make this stuff up." Might have known the story of real life boogeyman, Albert Fish. A slight elderly man with grey hair, no one suspected the kindly single father of being sadistic child murderer and cannibal.
This mum was brutally murdered by the last person anyone would expect. It was January 2010 in Conyers in Georgia. Nikki Whitehead was 34 years old, living in the area, and she had twin daughters, Jasmine and Tasmaya Whitehead. Now, the twins mostly actually lived with their grandmother, Della. This was because their mum, Nikki, had given birth to the twins aged just 17. She really struggled to look after two kids, being just a kid herself. And grandmother Della stated that due to Nikki's age when she had the kids, she would kind of flit in and out of their lives. She wanted to be a mum to them, but she also struggled with kind of wanting to be a normal teenager too. This changed though when the girls were 13. Nikki felt like she was finally able to be a proper mum to these girls, so she applied for custody of them in 2007. The twins weren't 100% happy with this though. They felt that they were settled with their nan and they didn't want this upheaval. And this really caused conflict between all of them because Nikki was granted custody. Girls were very unsettled and really misbehaved when they moved in with their mum. Nikki was trying to teach them right and wrong, but the girls felt like she was being a hypocrite. As the years went on, Nikki would scold them over things like smoking substances, but they argued back and said, well, we've seen you do this, so you kind of taught us to do this. Things would escalate between them all and sometimes even turn into physical fights. The girls ended up having to attend juvenile court due to their bad behaviour multiple times. They were very aggressive with their mum. So it probably goes without saying that the girls were temporarily handed back over to their nan, but the story does not end there. Nikki again fought for custody of the girls and was granted this for the second time in January 2010. When the girls were 16. But less than 10 days after being handed back over to their mother, a horrifying discovery was made. On the 13th of January, the girls returned home from school to find their mum dead. Now, they immediately flagged down police, who just so happened to be driving by at the time, to explain that they'd found their mum deceased in the bathtub at their home. And the officer at the scene found an absolute bloodbath. He even remarked that as he stepped into the home, he could smell the stench of blood. It was that bad. Nikki was absolutely covered in wounds. She'd been attacked with a vase. She had hideous injuries all over her body. She was actually described as completely unrecognisable. And the crime was very obviously a crime of passion. There was really no indication of a motive for a stranger to commit this murder. There was no forced entry. There was nothing missing from the home indicating a robbery, and there was no sign of SA. Investigators deemed that it was very unlikely that a stranger had done this to Nikki. Now, she did actually have a boyfriend at the time, and as with most murder investigations, he was pretty much the prime suspect. Officers knew that with such a chaotic crime scene, DNA could be really key here. Now, they initially questioned the two young girls and noted that they had scratches and bruises on them. But these were two rebellious teenagers who were often getting into physical fights, so it could have been the case that this had happened at school. Police treated them as victims who had clearly witnessed something horrific. But when officers scoured the crime scene, there was a really disturbing find. It was a journal, the twins' journal, and inside was incredibly damning evidence. There were paragraphs they'd written about how they needed to get rid of their mother, and one quote was, "She gotta go ASAP." They were also able to look through police records and find numerous occasions where Nikki, the mum, had rang police fearing for her life about how aggressive these twins were being towards her. When the twins were faced with the evidence against them, they eventually confessed to the brutal killing. And the details were absolutely chilling. They spoke of how an argument had broken out between them and their mum before school that day about them getting up late, and how Nikki had accused them of skipping school and being S-active. Now, the twins claimed that Nikki had threatened them, but there was no proof of this. And what unfolded next was just about the most brutal death imaginable. Jasmine admitted to hitting her mum over the head with a vase, while Tasmaya grabbed a pot and smacked her with it. Tasmaya then grabbed a knife and brutally stabbed Nikki as her twin sister strangled her with a ribbon. Tasmaya then took the knife and also stabbed her repeatedly. The twins had then carried their injured mum to the bathtub, which was filled with water. They literally watched her bleed out and eventually sink under the water. They seemingly made some kind of small effort to conceal some of the things from the crime scene before casually heading to school. Now, despite their age, they were sentenced to 30 years in prison each for the hideous crime, and they were placed in separate prisons. It's unlikely that they will see each other until 2044.
Snacks in hand, the vibe is set, and once I start, you won't forget. Don't eat too much, because you gotta stay fine, but come on, bestie, it's story time. I liked the intro last time, so I think I'm gonna start using that. Anyways, we have a problem. I'm shadow banned so bad. Like, it's not even funny. And I don't do nothing. So when y'all see this, make sure you share it, you repost it, you like, whatever it is that gets me out of the shadow banning phase, because, like, I can't reach y'all. We used to be like this. And TikTok is separating us. I don't like that. No, but like seriously, what is happening? Anyways, on to the story time. Now, I've made story times about the Hat Man before, so I guess this is another episode of somebody that met the Hat Man. If you don't know about the Hat Man, I made a video. If you want me to do a new one, I'll make a new one. But a lot of people have claimed to see the Hat Man. Even my godfather, I actually have that story posted too. My own godfather had an encounter with the Hat Man. For the sake of the story, let's call this guy Joshua. So Joshua is about 5 or 6 years old at the time, and he had a friend in school. Let's call him Reggie. Really good friends. They play together all the time, so ultimately they end up having a play date. And so the play date turns into other play dates, and the other play dates into sleepover. Was that even a full sentence? I'm not redoing it. Anyway, it comes the night where they have the sleepover. Obviously, the parents communicated everything is good. They're good to go. Parents, you know, they like each other. So Joshua gets dropped off at Reggie's house. And they're having a good time. They're playing, all of that. Everything goes well. And then it's bedtime, and they get ready to go to bed. They had bunk beds. And so Joshua decided that he wanted to sleep at the bottom because, you know, it's Reggie's bunk bed. But then Reggie's like, no, actually, I don't mind. Like, you're my guest. You can sleep at the top if you want to. He was being a really good friend. So boom, that's what happens. Joshua goes and he sleeps at the top of the bunk bed. Great! They go to sleep. Joshua wakes up at exactly 3 a.m. because Reggie had like a Toy Story alarm clock. And that's how he knew it was 3 a.m. exactly when he woke up, because he happened to look down and he's looking at Reggie's little like work, you know, table where the clock is, and it says 3 o'clock. And so he looks over there and he sees 3 o'clock. He's like, weird. Let me try to go back to sleep. And as he's turning his eyes to flip himself over to go to sleep, he sees a man. He sees a man in a hat standing over Reggie on the other side of the bunk bed. And so immediately he was frozen in fear. He wanted to scream. He wanted to make noises, but he could not. And so he's genuinely terrified. And this man-looking thing, and he couldn't even really see a face. It's just a man in all black with a hat standing over Reggie. And just when he thought it couldn't get any scarier, the man turns his face right to look at Joshua directly. Except Joshua still couldn't see a face, but he can tell that the head was moving. At that point, he immediately goes like this on the bed to pretend like he didn't see anything. And that's where he fucked up, because the moment he did that, he feels like something pinned him down. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. His body was pinned. He's laying there, tears coming out his face. So he does the one thing that he knows how to do. He starts praying. He starts doing a little prayer in his head, because at that point he's freaking out. He don't know what's happening. He prays for a few and he finally is able to move again. So he sits up, he looks down, man is gone. And all of this is happening so fast. So he looks down, realizes the man is gone. And at the moment he realizes the man is gone, Reggie jumps out of his sleep, screaming, crying. Parents run in the room thinking they were probably playing around or something like that and he got hurt. But no, Reggie looks genuinely terrified. And when his parents ask him, what's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? Reggie says, yes, I had a dream that there was a man in a hat choking me and I couldn't breathe. Once Joshua heard that, Joshua told them about what he saw. And the parents immediately gave this look to each other. They took the kids to the living room. Parents called Joshua's parents to come pick him up, and they came, they picked him up. And it's safe to say, after that, they didn't go back to Reggie's house. But that was Joshua's experience with the Hat Man. He still saw Reggie in school. They still played, they still spoke, but it was never really the same again. So yeah, that's the story. I hope y'all get to see this story actually, because I posted something and it's not, I don't know. Anyways, make sure you click the link in my bio to get your cleansed and covered book if you want to know how to cover yourself from, them things. Anyways, I love you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Also, can y'all please interact with my other content? Like, please? Snacks in hand, the vibe is set, and once I start, you won't forget. Don't eat too much because you gotta stay fine, but come on, bestie, it's story time. So, for the sake of the story, we're gonna call this guy Julian. And if you hear noises in my background, I don't know, it's some workers out there. Julian. So, Julian, well, he knows me now, but he didn't know me before. He didn't follow me before. He has a TikTok, but his girl follows me. She watches all my videos and she loves all my stories. And they've been together for about like 4 years now. And so she's ready to be tied down. Like, she gave 4 years of her life, so she's ready for Julian to propose. Pop the big question, But Julian is not popping the big question. And let's call his girlfriend Lila. And Lila is growing impatient. Like, bro, I don't have too much time on my hand. We're already 4 years in. I need something soon or I'm going to get gone. And so Lila kind of sits him down and has a conversation with him about it, because they've had conversations before and he said that's part of his plan. It's just not happening. And so she sat him down and she basically told him, like, hey, if you don't, do something soon, I'm going to have to step. And Julian kind of explains to her that he's been wanting to. It's just that financially he's not in the best place. And so they got down to the nitty gritty. The conversation ended up being very productive. And Julia ended up telling her, every time, and she noticed it too, she says it's true, every time something good starts happening to him, something bad just comes along. He can never have something good for a very long time. And so in his head, he's scared that if he proposes to her, it's gonna end, because anytime he does a big move or a successful move, it just always flips out. Anyway, upon this conversation, I swear y'all gonna keep thinking I'm just trying to do promo for my book, but I'm amazed my damn self at how much I'm actually helping people. Anyway, so his girl suggested my book, Cleansed and Covered. And she was just like, hey, you don't really have anything to lose, we'll just try it just to try it. I already bought the book and it's working great for me, so it may work great for you. And I see Blizzy post all the time about people's submissions saying how the book works so well for them. So he's like, sure, whatever it takes to not lose you, because, let's do it. So they were planning to go on a healthy journey together anyway. So they were gonna cut out sugar, all the bad stuff that they were eating. They already had that plan, so they just thought that they were going to incorporate my book within the plan that they already had. And that's exactly what they did. And the first thing they did, y'all, was the fasting. And I'm starting to see a pattern. Everybody that does the fasting in my book has some kind of revelation or some huge change. If you watch some of the testimonies from my book, the first person that did the fasting ended up landing their dream job, and so on and so forth. Anyway, they do the fasting and they do the spiritual bath. And again, just like the other stories, on his last day of fasting, he has a dream. Now, for context, Julian's grandma had passed away a very long time ago. Anyway, so he has a dream that it's his grandma in the dream, and his grandma is crying. So he runs to her like, hey, grandma, what's wrong? And she's crying, and she's like, I just have to leave you now. I have to leave. I have to go. And as she's crying, she turns around and she leaves. And when he goes outside to chase after her, she was just gone. So he wakes up and he tells, what do we call her? Lily? Lila? Yeah, he tells Lila about the dream. And Lila says, oh my gosh, that's the other person that Blizzy said that used the book. That's the same thing that happened to him. Did I have a dream? And then things started shifting. So he's like, okay, well, I guess this is a good thing. Except a few hours later, he gets super sick. Terribly sick. And I mean, throwing up and diarrhea, all that. And so when he calls Lila back and tells her yo, I feel terrible. Can you please come take care of me? Lila starts smiling. And he's like, what the fuck are you smiling about? I told you I feel terrible. Lila's like, yo, one of Blizzy's submitters, the same thing happened to them. And Lila's like, you'll be fine by tomorrow. Trust me. You just have to like let all that bad stuff that you've been holding on, the energies and the bad stuff that you've probably been holding on for years, you got to let it out. And that's exactly what happened, y'all. He threw up for about 3 hours and then felt completely fine. Except he was terribly exhausted. Like he was exhausted and ended up sleeping for the next 12 hours. Anyway, as of right now, it's been about a month since all that happened. Julian has now landed his dream job, and they are closer they've ever been of the 4 years that they were together. So it's safe to say that soon Lila's gonna get the question popped on her. Yeah. I'm so glad I was able to help you guys. When I'm gonna keep saying this, like every time when I wrote that book, I expected it to help, of course, but I didn't think it was gonna help. You know what I mean? And I'm so glad. I love the submissions. Keep telling me, keep letting me know how the book is helping you guys, because it just helps me. It motivates me to like give you guys more. It makes me know that I'm actually making a difference even when I don't know it. Anyways, if you want to get the book for yourself, the link is in my bio. It's called Cleansed and Covered. And I'll see you soon for the next story time. And let me know if y'all like that little song in the beginning. I like it too.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
Okay, so I finally decided to hop on this trend. So my story takes place back when I was like 8 or 9 years old. We had just moved into our new house. Every week, every day, we would pull up to this house, watching it get built from ground up. Ground up. So no one else lived here but us. So we move in, everything's great. This is our first house with like upstairs, downstairs. So we're super excited about that. We just think we moved into a mansion. Like, keep in mind, we came from, you know, like apartments. We had a house, but it was just like one story. So we thought we was the shit. So we're probably living there like a month or so. And me and my sister, we share a room. The way the room is set up, it was right when you walk in, there's my bed, there's a closet, and then there's a little space, and then there's another twin bed. We both had twin beds, and then we had our little dresser in between us. So it was bed, dresser, bed. In the front was another dresser, closet, my bed, space, my sister, window. So one night, I'm sleeping. I wake up at like 3 something in the morning, and I just look over, you know, you're just waking up. I guess just case in the room. So I look around, and then there's something laying like on my sister's bed, but I think I'm tripping, so I'm like, nah. Go on and come back. Still looking at me. It has these red beady eyes, these ears that just like, I don't know, they just came out like that. And then it was just laying fetal position to her. So where her feet were is where the head was, and where her head was is where the feet was. And it was looking back at me. So in that moment, I just did what my dad told me to do if I ever get scared, which is pray. So I went under the blankets, I started praying, never lifted my head back up, woke up the next morning, whatever. I didn't say shit to nobody. So the next day comes, I don't say nothing to nobody. Another little backstory is so when we first moved in, my dad always had his room door open. His room door was upstairs on the side, but next to the stairs. Always had the room door open. You know, wants to hear everything. We're not allowed to go downstairs after everybody sleeps. So that was his thing, making sure nobody's going downstairs to eat or drink or nothing like that. Probably also to break-ins and whatnot. But so a little bit before I seen that, my dad started closing his room door. We're all thinking, free willy-nilly, we can go downstairs at any point. He's not going to hear us. We can get our midnight snacks. It's summertime, so, you know, we out there eating up everything in the damn kitchen, literally. So that's just remember that part. So the next day comes, Now it's time to wind on down and head into bed. And I started begging my sister, please, Jasmine, please come to sleep in your bed tonight. Please. And she's older, so she's like, no, you're not sleeping in my bed. Like, no, we're not doing that. You're too old. You're not sleeping in my bed at all. So I'm just begging. I'm like, please. I'm not telling her why. I just really, really just, please, can I please sleep in your room? So she finally is like, sure, why not? Like, sleep in here if you want. But I'm sleeping next to the window. So with her sleeping next to the window, that means that I'm sleeping where the thing is that I just seen the night before. So win's a win. I get to sleep in her bed, so I'm not even really like I'm tripping, but I'm not tripping because at least I'm not sleeping alone. You feel? So the night happens, and sleep. Y'all know what happens next. You wake up at 3 in the morning, like we always do. So I wake up at 3 something, and as soon as I open up my eyes, guess what's there? It's laying on my bed. The head is on my pillow. The body is just covering my twin bed. I mean, it was just like, I don't know. It was like, I want to say like a glob of darkness, but it was just like a black, like big thing that just covered up my bed. The beady eyes were just staring at me. And I'm staring at them. And then go under the covers. And I'm like, fuck this shit. Pray, go to sleep. So then the next day happens. So, like I said, it's summertime. So when I come downstairs, my parents, everyone's down there eating breakfast. And then as I'm coming down the stairs, because I was the last one to make it down, I hear my dad talking about, he's seen it again. We need to get a priest up in this house. So I chime in. I'm all, hey, Dad, actually, I think I see the same thing that you seen yesterday. He's like, no, there's no way. What did you see? So I tell him what I seen. And my dad's like, you know what? No, you're tripping. You're just trying to say that you seen the same things I seen because you're tripping. You didn't see shit. There's nothing in this house. This house is brand new. So, of course, you being a kid, you're just like, all right, maybe I'm tripping. So like a couple days later, we had a priest in our house. He was blessing every room, left holy water with us. And honestly, I did not see that shit again. But a couple years passed, so around 2018. So think about it. I was in 3rd grade, way back when. So that's probably like I'm an adult at this time. So my aunt, she does magic. She's in town. So my dad decides that he wants to bring up this story again. But when he brings it up, we're all in my grandma's house, and he's like, you know what, Jessica, step outside with us. So I step outside. I'm talking to my aunt, I'm telling my dad, like, because my dad's like, tell her the story, tell her what you seen. So then I start telling her, I'm like, tell her exactly what I just told y'all. And then my dad looks at me, he was like, Mija, what you seen was real. You weren't tripping out. So yeah, he ends up telling me the reason why he was closing his room door and all that was because that thing would cover up his room door and just be staring at him in the middle of the night. So he started closing his room door. So yeah, that was one of many instances that happened at that house. Yeah.